Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to 444 Foxtrot. I am Don Everett Smith Jr., your host. And as always, we have my dad, Don Everett Smith Sr. Dad, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing okay. I got my buddy Hannibal sitting right here in the chair next to me. So if you hear me saying ow and bite, and then it's because he's chomping on my hand while I'm rubbing his tummy. Because cats.
Give him my regards.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is your grand cat, Dad.
Tell him Gomer says hey.
Ow, ow. So, hey, I'm sitting here with my hand getting bitten by this silly cat. In fact, you know what? I think our listeners are going to want to see what this little guy looks like. If I could, he's fighting me. I can't pick him up. He's a black cat. He's a pure black cat. And we love black cats in this house. But when I was a kid, I remember reading a story about black cats. In fact, it was Edgar Allan Poe's tale of a black cat. And it was all about how this crazy guy was trying to get rid of a cat. He thought he got rid of it, and slowly the ghost of the cat came back and drove him insane, which is typical for an Edgar Allan Poe story.
Yeah, well, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, who doesn't? Now, one of the things that I wanted to know, how old were you when you first started reading? That was a terrible segue.
That's kind of impossible to say. But see, I didn't know I could read. That was the problem.
Okay.
So that's it. And I mean, my sister taught me to read. Or my brother and my sister used to read too. We didn't have TV.
Right. Oh, real quick. This is Hannibal. I just took this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, so you guys didn't have a TV?
No.
Oh, that's
not until just about the time I started school.
Okay.
We bought a TV. Yeah, we were pretty poor family, so we didn't. I was left to my own resources, a lot of the time, and that sometimes led to trouble, accidents, particularly.
Right.
But at any rate, I couldn't really tell. I can tell you what happened if you're interested in hearing about the reading part. Yeah, I guess that's.
Ow!
Yeah, maybe we should just watch you and the cat fight. That might be kind of fun.
I'm not fighting him. Look at this. This is Demon Cat.
He doesn't look happy, that's for sure.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah, let me know when you two finish playing.
All right. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt your playtime.
No. Again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was laughing at that expression on his face. He's like,
yeah, well, that was a keeper for sure.
Yeah. So, but anyway, going back, because I wanted to hear about, because you told me that you had a great story about you learning how to read. And you said that you didn't have TV, and your sister and brother were the ones that taught you how to read.
Mostly my sister, but my brother read to me at times too. And I was always bugging him to read. And my sister would read, but when she read, she had this habit of running her hand across the page. And so after a while, I started associating words she was speaking, printed words on the page. when I'd hear book and I'd say B-O-O-K, and every time she said, I would see that word, and that started expanding and everything. So pretty soon I was following along with her, but I didn't know I was reading. So I
Oh,
mean,
that's interesting.
so I kept bugging them to read to me. Finally, one day I asked my brother to read, and he said, "No, go away. I'm tired of reading to you. Go read it yourself." And my sister wasn't available, so I said, I was kind of a stubborn kid. So, all right, I will. I'll go read it myself. Pretty soon I'm running, what's this word? What's this word? What's this word? And he got sick of that and ran me off again. I would ask my mom, what's this word? What's this word? And she was much more patient. And of course,
Right.
my sister was infinitely patient with me when she was available. But pretty soon I was reading the books, but they were mostly comic books.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I didn't, to me, but to me, they weren't real books. Comic books with the pictures and everything, it was what we called them funny books, not
Right.
comic books, but funny books. But they were not real books. And my sister, she's pouring through these, history books and everything where it's all printed pages. And it's like, to me, that was fascinating because whenever she would read to me, I would form these images in my mind, pictures of what was going on. And I had my own set of, specifications as to what different people look like and everything she was reading about. So, but I really, really, really wanted to go to school to learn to read, not realizing that I was already reading.
Right.
Uh, I didn't think it counted, So I mean, they went to school. That's where they learned to read. I figured I had
Right.
to do the same thing, right? So
Makes total sense.
anyway, I started the first grade, and they had the little reading circles, and this, the teacher only took like 5 people at a time. And since I was way down in the alphabet, I had to sit and watch as other kids learned to read. Now I couldn't hear what was going on because they were at the front of the room and I was at the back sitting at one of these tables. And they'd give you that newsprint, a sheet of newsprint, and a crayon about as big as a horse's leg, and tell you to make pictures. And I was sitting back there drawing pictures of it. Stupid looking airplanes and boats and all this stuff. And the whole time I was so envious of the kids learning to read. But finally my day came. It was my turn to join the reading circle. So the 5 of us gathered up front, or 5 or 6, I don't remember exactly. But at any rate, the teacher passes out the little primer reading books. They're like cloth covers. And I mean, you open it up and here's this picture of the dog. See Spot. That's turn the page and Spot's running. See Spot run. Run, run, run. See Puff. Puff was the cat. See Puff. See Puff run. Run, run, run. See Dick. See Dick run. Run, run, run. See Jane. See Jane. And it was like, and I asked the teacher, I said, what is this? I said, this isn't reading. I said, there's no story here. And she was like, oh, wait a second. So she got a second grade primer that, because in our school system, you had the same teacher first and second grade.
Mm.
So at any rate, she gave me that, and I thumbed through it. It took me about 10 seconds to go through the book. And I said, it's the same thing. It's just more words, but there's no story. It's just words. And she said, hold on 1 second. And she went to her desk and she rummaged through that and she pulled out this hardbound book. And she comes back over and she thumbs through some pages and she finds a word and she points to it and shows me. And she said, what's this word? Now, it just so happened I had run across that word about a week before in a comic book, and I didn't know what it was. It was a story about Scrooge McDuck, and he was stranded on an island, but it didn't say island. It said Island, Island.
Right.
So I took the word to my mom. I said, "What's this word? What's an island?" And she said, "Oh no, it's pronounced island." I said, "But it says island." She said, "I know, but the S is silent." I said, "Silent? That's stupid. Why do you use the word? Why do you use the letter you don't need?" And she said, "I don't know. I don't make the rules, but the word is island." And I said, "Well, that's strange. I don't like that, you know." Right. So anyway, the teacher points to this word, and she said, "What's this word?" And it happened to be island. And I said, "The word's island. The S is silent." And she had this really strange look on her face, like she had just encountered alien life form. And so anyway, I got dismissed. I got kicked out of the reading circle. And back I was coloring this stupid boat and airplanes, and not learning to read. But at any rate, she went to the principal and they organized a reading comprehension test. And I had to go to the principal's office and take this test. And next thing I knew, they sent a note home that they wanted to meet with the parents.
Oh no.
So my dad, he couldn't take off from work, but my mom, she went in and she was meeting. I wasn't part of the meeting or anything, but she told me about it, and they said we had Don tested for reading comprehension, and my mother said, "How do you do?" They said, "Well, he scored in the upper 10 percentile of high school freshmen."
Oh wow.
And she said, "What?" She said, "Is that possible? That can't be right. Is that correct?" They said, "We're not sure." And she said, "What do you mean you're not sure?" She said, "Well, that's as high as the test scores for elementary school. So it might be higher." So, but anyway, I mean, I wasn't any smarter than any of the other kids. I didn't have a higher IQ. It's just that I had a really loving sister who who spent a lot of time reading to me, and I just kind of absorbed it, because of the way she read,
Yeah.
and I think that made all the difference in the world. But I mean, as far as being bright light here, didn't even know I could read. So I did
Yeah.
not. I didn't have a high IQ or anything. I just happened to learn to read early, probably because we didn't have TV. But I don't really know, because once we got TV, there was nothing good on. We only had two channels, and at night they would have maybe a decent show. I don't know, George Burns and Gracie Island or something. But during the day, it was all soap operas, so
Yeah.
it wasn't worth watching. So anyway, that's basically how I learned to read, and I always loved reading, and I always loved the images that. So
Well, I was going to tell you because I work in education and I was actually looking for a book to show you. And I'll use Calvin and Hobbes Standby. And that's exactly what we do with kids. We have them point their fingers and read the words.
follow the words, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how they learn it. And that's how they learn the words. They pick them up that way. And
But
they
at least
go,
there's a story involved. Well, I mean, they just had words, Run,
well,
run, run. See
well,
spot, run. Like,
well, one of the things that they actually do now is they want to get the kids familiar with the sounds. So like you'll have something that says like if you were to take dog best run, what they'll do is they'll put OG space EST and then UN. So then you would get the kids to pronounce og, est, un, and then try and do that. I don't see. I find that futile. My attitude is just teach them the words, and then let the
I was saying I don't know how I ever learned to read if they had that system.
yeah.
I don't know. What do I
But
know?
then you turn around and you start. Now I've seen Gallagher, the comedian. I'm not sure which one it was because there were two Gallagher brothers or something. But he used to have this whole big thing about how he would like take spelling words and he'd have COMB and he goes, "What's this spell? Comb?" And then he'd flip it over to the T and he'd say, "Now is this a tome? No, it's a tomb." And then he'd flip the B and tomb over to an E and say, "Is this a tome? Tome?" Uh, no, it would be like, and he would flip the words around, and you're right, because it's like, why is it called Island and not, or why is it called Island and not Island?
See, you're getting confused now.
Yeah, so,
So,
but
I mean
anyway,
that's not the Gallagher I've seen. The one I've seen, he takes hammers to watermelons.
well, yeah, he does that at the end, but he does a whole big stand-up special before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like he ends with the watermelon stuff. So, but anyway, speaking of reading, if anybody happens to see the word subscribe come across the screen, or if you see it down below, please subscribe.
I'll do it first thing.
Yeah, exactly. Please subscribe. So anyway,
What about you? Want me to hit the like button too?
that would be fantastic. Hit that like button. Yes, we need that like button.
Now I'll work on it.
Yeah. I was going to tell you, I think one of my favorite one of the stories that your sister told me when I was growing up was the time how she made you dress like little Lord Fauntleroy or whatever his
Oh
name.
man.
And she wanted you to wear, I think it was a suit jacket, a pair of shorts, socks that go up to your knees, and you always wore like a Buster Brown t-shirt and a pair of jeans. And you scratched the heck out of her. And so
You got your facts a little wrong here. A little bit wrong. What
okay.
she did is she made me a suit out of crepe paper. Now, I don't know if you know what crepe paper is, but it's that like real thin. It's sort of like wrapping paper, but you can see through it. It's just the real thin, and so she made this suit out of me, and she wanted to put me on parade at the community center. And, she dressed me up in that thing, and I looked at it and I said, "I'm not going to go walking out here in my underwear." And I started ripping it off, and yeah, I scratched the daylights out of her. I mean, I was a terrible brother. I mean, she was such a sweetheart of a sister, and it was like, man, I would just, I was just horrible to her. But
That's part of the fun.
that story, no, that was that community center though. That's where we used to hang out in the summers. They had a really good playground and everything. Uh, but that's she took me there once, and that's where I fell off the sliding board.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was the tallest sliding board in the playground. Of course, they had like three of them, and a short one, a middle one, and then they had this real high one. So I climbed up that, and I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I lost my balance and fell and hit my head.
Oh,
And the I was crying. I was crying real hard, and I heard somebody say, call a doctor. And I was like, no, don't call a doctor. Because doctors were bad news.
Right.
But no, I was afraid I might end up in the hospital if they called a doctor. And back then, when people went in the hospital, they didn't come out. that was it,
Right. Right.
A one-way ticket in those days. But at any rate, all of a sudden, everything went blank. I just blinked out. So my sister picked me up and carried me home, and my mom put me to bed. And she did
smart.
What any loving parent would have done in the early 50s. And she went across the street and got the baseball coach to come have a look at me. And so he comes over and he checked my pupils, and he said, actually, his pupils don't look bad at all. He said, so he'll probably wake up in an hour or two. But if he doesn't wake up by tomorrow, you probably should take him to the doctor.
Instead of taking you then and there.
That's the way it was. So anyway, that was the first thing in the morning. It was probably about 10:30 or so when I hit my head. But my sister carried me home. I mean, she was a good sister. And my mom, she got me medical care from the baseball coach. And I did wake up about, I don't know, maybe 4:30ish or so. It was late afternoon, and I had a splitting headache and everything. But my mom made me stay in bed, and they watched me and everything. I kept close watch. Somebody sat by the bed all the time and all. But at any rate, once the headache went away, I was basically no worse for wear. And I mean, there were no lasting side effects. Now, I mean, really, I mean, it didn't. And it was like, I mean,
you had Jim Ignatowski eyes.
I mean, the kids, we got our bells rung all the time. If anything, it made you like a big man in the neighborhood for about half an hour or so. Wow, he was unconscious. Man, how do you get unconscious? I want to be unconscious too, It was like,
okay, smack.
But I mean, it's just a miracle that we didn't have more bells rung the way.
Oh my gosh!
The stuff we played, the bicycle races and things like that. It was got pretty crazy sometimes.
Right. Now, this was all stuff that happened in Chesapeake, right? Chesapeake, Virginia.
Yeah, it was called South Norfolk at that time. That was before South Norfolk merged with Norfolk County, and they formed the city of Chesapeake, which
right.
It was already a Chesapeake, and it was like, oh, whoops. But so there was a Chesapeake, a small town on the eastern shore called Chesapeake. So I don't know how they ever resolved that, but Chesapeake is still Chesapeake. So,
well, I just found out that in central Pennsylvania, there's 2 Woodward townships, one in Clinton County and another in Lycoming County. It's like,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
that's
I've seen that happen a few times during searches and things. But anyway, that's what life was like in the 50s. If you really didn't go to a doctor or seek a whole lot of medical care, that is, unless like we're bleeding or really, really, really sick. And it was like I didn't want to have any part to do with the medical establishment if I could help it.
Yeah, they were the gatekeepers to the afterlife.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just kind of like, yeah, let's open up the door. Oh, hi, welcome, come on in. Well,
yeah, but the doctors made house calls back then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you didn't have to go to the emergency room. You called the doctor. Now, he wouldn't get there right away. He would have his office hours, and then they usually made their visits in the evening. They had their little black bag, just like in the old Western movies or something, and they would come in and treat you. In fact, I got in a fight with a doctor when I was like 5 years old. My brother was sick. He was really sick,
Mm.
throwing up and everything, and we shared a bedroom. So my mom called the doctor, and he came out. He looked at my brother and everything, and gave him a shot, gave him a prescription, and then he comes after me, and he got a hypodermic needle. And now back then, the hypodermic needles were glass,
Right.
so he's coming at me with that hypodermic needle. I said, I'm not sick, and but no, he was determined to give me a shot. So I hauled off and punched the hypodermic out of his hand. It was flying across the room and hit the windowsill and busted. And he was really mad. He
Oh,
did
I
not.
could imagine, because those weren't cheap back then.
I don't know, but at any rate, he had my mom hog tie me and sit on me basically while he gave me the shot, and he also gave me a prescription. And turned out I was severely allergic to the medication. It attacked my kidneys,
Oh,
and I wasn't sick until I started taking the medicine. But I mean that's why you don't want to go and see a doctor, especially if you didn't think you needed one.
yeah.
And, life was different.
Very different. Holy cow, that's crazy.
Wasn't crazy to us. Business as usual. But,
Yeah. So you must have had about 2 or 3 hypodermics and needles in there.
oh yeah, well I mean they had a supply of them. I mean that little black bag carried a whole wealth of stuff. But I mean, he probably gave the same antibiotics to everybody. I mean, he just had a few bottles of it in there, and he would give me an injection.
Would he
But
use the same needle on people?
I don't know.
Because
I mean, they
nowadays,
didn't throw them away; they sterilized them. They had this little steam cabinet thing, and they had
yeah.
the stuff in there and steam them. But yeah, I guess they reused them. I don't know if they reused the needles, but they definitely reused the syringes. But
Right. But I would, yeah, because I would think you would need to. Well, the big thing about not sharing needles or what have you, that came after the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s when they were really pushing that, unless they pushed.
Mm, not that was among drug users. Telling drug
Mhm.
users don't share the needle. I mean, the medical community, they've always thrown the needles away. At least as far as I knew. I mean, when they quit sterilizing hypodermics, they started throwing everything away. The
Right, right,
syringe, the needle, everything. But no, I don't. That was just advice for the drug users.
right, right. That
Don't share needles. So, but the
yeah.
doctors, no, the doctors weren't sharing the needles.
Well, I mean, like I could see them doing it for your brother and then doing it to you, or something like that.
No, he used a different
Oh,
syringe.
okay,
Yeah,
gotcha. All right. Well, that's a good thing.
yeah.
So
I think he did.
at least you hoped he did.
So, maybe he did. Maybe I was just allergic to my brother, not the drug.
You wouldn't be the first person to be allergic to their brother.
Oh man.
You had a wacky brother and sister. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, my brother and I were real close. He was still much older than me, and he left. When did he leave? He left in 1956 to join the army.
Right.
He quit school and joined the army because he had a big fight with the principal, and the principal said, "Yeah, no, you're not going to graduate this year," and he got mad about that and quit and went to the army. At any rate, we've spent a little bit of time reminiscing here, but maybe we should wrap up. I mean, before we get boring.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest with you, the cat scratches are slowly beginning to heal now. So, speaking of
hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, exactly. So, or at least, very least, soap and water. So, anyway, well, folks, thank you so much for joining us today on 444 Foxtrot. Thank you for just sitting back, enjoying some stories about what life was like back in the 1950s, at least if you were in the Chesapeake and South Norfolk area back then. So we will have more stories for you very soon. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. I am Don Smith, your host, and this is Don Smith, my father. So thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Take care.
And there's Hannibal.
Yep.
Hannibal.
Say goodbye, Hannibal.
Yeah. Hannibal, come here. Get your butt out of there. Come here. Turn around. At least make an appearance. Say hello to the little. Oh, now Hannibal, get down.
He's that Hannibal.
Yeah. Now I see something up on the wall. Well, anyway, with that said, thank you, everybody. On behalf of Hannibal, myself, and my dad, thank you for watching and have a great day.